Hello everyone, welcome back to your weekly PlayStation podcast, Talking the PS, where we round up all the gaming and PlayStation news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com/Helix Plays Games and up in the digital clouds on your podcast preference of choice. We've got a great show lined up for this week where we'll be discussing Jedi Survivor going back to PS4, PlayStation 5 having a price cut, and the upcoming Lego Harry Potter. And joining me this week is not Mr. Chris, because he's currently celebrating his anniversary with his lovely wife in Poland. Hope you guys are enjoying that. So we have Mr. Rob. Rob, how are you?
Hello. Good. I'm not in Poland, which puts me at a disadvantage to Chris, but all good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Chris, actually, before, I was telling you, literally just before you jumped in the Discord to start, so we could start recording, Chris jumped in. He must have seen me jump into the studio and jumped in. He showed me he was up in the mountain drinking vodka and it looked absolutely beautiful. He had like a toboggan and stuff that he was going to go down. It's like, it looks like he's having a great time.
This seems like an insane fever dream.
Yeah, where me and you, well, I don't know about you, where I live, it's currently pissing it down.
Yeah, I don't know if video viewers might be able to see out the back of my window, and it's exactly the same. It's miserable as hell. I'm certainly having no such toboggan and vodka combination fun at the moment.
You could just have some vodka and stand in the rain. But if you don't want to drink vodka and stand in the rain, Rob, have you been playing anything interesting?
I feel like I've went back to my early 20s in my game choices recently. So I'm deep into Skyrim. It was a mistake to download it. It was a mistake to install it. I'm super deep into that game. And when I want to break from Skyrim, I play GTA 5's story mode. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a throwback.
Yeah, that's a massive throwback.
That's an era of gaming right there.
Exactly, right? And yeah, I'm really enjoying both titles. Like, obviously I've played them fully before, but it's been a good long while. So I've left it long enough to forget certain details, which then pleasantly surprised me. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I do like
all
Skyrim.
the way back, decades. Yeah.
Interestingly, actually, we do have some Elder Scrolls news on XPass, which goes up live yesterday on YouTube and podcast services. So we might talk a bit more about our love of Elder Scrolls and stuff over there.
Yeah. What about yourself?
Although I did last week, I said, right, I was at a mood where I just wanted to roll credits on Final Fantasy VII. I think because of my holiday, it kind of dragged the whole thing out because I had a good 2.5, almost 3 week break right in the middle of the game, and I just lost some momentum, and I did want to get through the story. And then I rolled credits this week, and then I immediately started trophy hunting, and I properly got back into it. My interest went pretty much as soon as I rolled credits. I went, right. I think it's, sometimes when there's got that thing hanging over you, because I felt like it was taking so long to get through the game, that once it kind of okay, there's that checkbox done, now I can relax and just start enjoying the game properly again.
Yeah, so it almost takes the pressure off, kind of getting through the story a little bit. So
I'm working on most of my trophies. I've only got a few left to do. I've got the mini games, which I hate them, but I'll do that. I'm going to do them last. At the moment, I'm just doing my hard mode playthrough because there's a few trophies that you can only unlock in hard mode. One of them is actually completing the game in hard mode, but there's a few extra bosses and stuff that you can only access in hard mode. I'm currently about halfway through the game in hard mode, and I started last night.
Nice, that's pretty good. What's the skill ceiling in terms of difficulty between the tiers? Is it?
Right now, it is harder because the main difference between normal and hard mode is, in hard mode you can't use items. So you can't use items to restore your health or your MP or anything like that. Items are just not in. They're still in the game, but you just can't use them.
So it's all magic based then, I guess.
Yeah. So it's more about, there's a lot more resource management. There is benches throughout the game where you can restore your health, but sometimes they're few and far between. So it is very much more about that resource management, thinking when is the best to use your healing spells, what healing spells to use, focus on maybe increasing like your MP and your HP of your characters using your materia rather than just what I was doing before, just straight up attacking. So there's a lot more choices to be made in your materia selection.
Yeah, I guess it need to be more tactical, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot more chopping and changing between fights, which I've found. So now what I'm going into boss fights, going, right, I've got a boss fight, what is my materia loadout for the fight? Where in normal mode I was just going, this is my general how I like to play as Cloud, how I like to play as Tifa, how I like to play as Barret, how I like to play as Aerith, and just setting materia to suit the play style. Now I'm going, what is the requirements of the fight?
Gotcha.
And by doing that, I haven't found it too much harder.
Okay. I mean, it's like for some people, that's the appeal of a lot of games, isn't it? It's like the preparation, the loadout, like the Batman kind of approach, if you want.
Yeah, that's it. So it's like, but you do get, once you actually roll credits, you do get double XP and triple AP. So AP is what you use to level up your materia.
Gotcha.
So maxing out your materia becomes a lot easier. And that's not even in hard mode. That's just even if you want to go through the chapter select and play through normal mode. So I very quickly hit the level cap.
So that takes away all the edge of the difficulty scaling, I guess.
Yeah, and then you can upgrade your weapons, add more effects, more stats, add more material to them. So I'm still upgrading weapons and stuff. So there's still headroom to grow, but yeah, I think because I'm skipping all the cutscenes and I did a lot of the kind of grindy stuff to get some trophies. There's some chapters that I just know like the back of my hand at this point.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you're not blitzing through it, but steady pace.
I'm blitzing through it, absolutely burning through it. Like, I did, like, basically a good maybe 2/5 of the game in one sitting last night. And
what time did you go to bed, is the question.
2:30.
Oh, that's not
It was not
awful.
too bad. It's not awful.
It's not great,
but
it's not awful.
Well, I was going to go earlier, but I did need to finish a chapter. It's like, I want to finish this chapter. It's the chapter with the airbuster. I want to finish that chapter before I call it for the night. So when I start,
the airbuster from the original game.
Yeah. So when I start again, I hated it. It was actually relative. I found it easier on hard mode because I've got my characters maxed out, my materials maxed out, so I had a better strategy. Where first time it's fairly early in the game, so you're kind of limited with what you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next two chapters are kind of big chapters that I've played a handful of times because there's some grindy stuff to get. You know the cross-dressing scenes?
Oh, yeah.
Well, each character, both Aerith, Tifa and Cloud, all have free dresses, and they're based on your selection of side quests and stuff. So I've played through the next two chapters about 3 times already. So I think I'll burn through them.
Yeah, that was one of my fun, like, because I haven't played the remake, but on the original, that was one of like the funnest parts, like trying to gather all the different kind of elements of that outfit. Because like if you didn't do very well, he didn't pick you. Like he didn't pick Cloud.
It's changed up a bit because you don't have to go right through and collect all the elements of the outfit. Now you still get the scene where he kind of picks between Aerith, Tifa, and Cloud.
Yeah.
But regardless who he picks, it plays out the same.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But some of the quests that were there to collect the outfit have been retooled as to just become side quests in that chapter.
So do you still have to do the like the squat challenge?
Yes.
The bodybuilders.
So when I said the mini games, that's one of the mini games I need to do.
Nice.
You have to do the squats as just part of it. As well, it's an available side quest. It's not necessary. You can't skip it. But in fact, that's how you get one of the dresses, by skipping all the side quests.
I remember when my mum bought that game for me, and like she came into like my bedroom, and I was playing squats. That scene, and like I was playing on like a tiny, like must have been like even like 17, maybe 15 inch box TV, and she's just like, "What are you doing, Rob?"
I'm doing squats so my character can cross-dress so he can get picked to be a bride by this gangster guy. It all makes sense. But yeah, so I think it should go quite smoothly, I think, until I don't know how it's going to be when I get to the harder levels, though. Because there's been a few fights that just caught me off guard, but that's like harder than I was expecting. But
well, you're making good progress. That's the main thing.
Yeah. It's easy when you skip all the cutscenes. And you know kind of the level there and stuff. But that's all we have enough for that. Before we get into it, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell so you kept in the loop with all of great content here, such as XPass, which goes live on every single Monday, where we will be talking about Elder Scrolls and much, much more. We're also on our socials, such as Threads and Twitter, at Helix Plays Game, everywhere you might expect us to be. We didn't have a weekly live stream last week because, quite frankly, I had a banging headache all day. I put off the decision as long as I can, but you know when that headache just persists all day.
Yeah.
I got home from work, so I do not want to sit in front of a camera tonight, so sorry about that, guys. It will return this week on Thursday or Friday, I'm not sure yet. Rob, would you like to introduce us to the
properly prepared PlayStation Perusing Points, aka the news?
The news. And the news, as always, is brought to you by our Helix Heroes, which you can join for as little as 99p, which will help me buy paracetamol so I don't have headaches so you get your actual live stream. First story of the week, Rob. Jedi Survivor is about to be released again, but this time on PS4. What do you make of that at this point?
I'm not liking it, to be honest. I know it's like lots of people still on PlayStation 4 and on like and it still has a really healthy install base. The game struggles on PS5. Like sometimes I don't know if you got around to playing it yet.
I haven't.
There's sections when, especially around water, where the game just noticeably struggles on next gen. It's current gen hardware, let's call it, because it is current gen now, right? It struggles there. I don't see how they're going to be able to do it justice on much older hardware and like keep people happy when it comes out, because the quality's just not going to be there. And again, it sucks for people who are still kind of on PlayStation 4, but it just shouldn't be done. At least not before they've fixed, like, got it running on PlayStation 5 properly. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, Code Z from our Discord writes in, as you can, with the recent announcement of Jedi Survivor being ported to last-gen consoles and Destroy All Humans 2 being released on last-gen in June, do you think that publishers and developers should solely focus on current-gen or cater to people who either can't afford to upgrade to next-gen or are happy with what they currently have? I think I'm in a slightly different camp to you here, Rob.
Okay.
I actually kind of agree with some of the things you said. I don't think they should be focusing on PS4 at all until they've got PS5 working as intended.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't mind, in general terms, a game coming out on PS5 or Xbox Series consoles, doing well, everyone's like it, and then later, then they start working on the PS4 port. Because my whole thing is, at this point in time, I think we're comfortably enough into the generation where I do want to start seeing games really push the limits of what these consoles can do and kind of live up to the promise of this generation. I mean, things like, I remember playing my Hogwarts Legacy, loved that game, but it always, part of it felt like it was being held back because it was a cross-gen game.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
So that's what I personally... I understand if you're on PS4 kind of sort of the PS5, you're just going to wholesale disagree with me, and you're right to do so. As a PS5 owner, I want all games now coming out to be focused on delivering the best performance they can on the PS5. And if they can then later bring it to the PS4, more power to them. But the focus needs to be nailing the PS5 for me.
Yeah, which I'd argue that Jedi Survivor hasn't done yet. It's a fantastic game, don't get me wrong, but there is still performance issues which haven't been resolved.
Do you think your views might be closer to mine if there wasn't performance issues?
To a degree.
Yeah.
It's a really, really difficult issue because we're all fortunate enough to be able to kind of upgrade hardware with it's a consideration when we buy it, but it's not like this has to be like really kind of thought out and planned purchase and stuff like that. So I'm very lucky to be able to do that. I just think that kind of pushing games back onto all the consoles also gives developers almost like a license to do it half-assed a bit. Like being realistic, what quality is Jedi Survivor going to be on the PlayStation 4?
Probably similar to Jedi Fallen Order, I'd imagine.
Yeah, but
which
again,
isn't a bad game. I think the PS4 is a good console, and I can see a good experience being on it. It won't be as good as PS5. It'll probably be locked to 30 frames per second, probably max 1080p. They'll dial back on things like the lighting. They might change up the lighting, however the lighting's run, probably to an older generation of techniques or something. Mm-hmm. The more like kind of graphically intense kind of processors, that's probably where they'll be looking to reduce.
I mean, presumably they'll have to... I'm thinking more like, what are they going to do about like loading periods and stuff as well? Because like...
Tough. Just accept the long period of times. Like, I don't think there's much more you can do about that. Like, but there again, if you haven't got a PS5 and you're only on the PS4, these long load times are just normal. Yeah,
true.
And if you're getting annoyed by them, well, it's kind of... Part of it is EA should just kind of turn around and go, look, this is a PS5 developed game. We've backported it for you, but we are limited by your hardware at this point. It wasn't designed for your hardware, so if the load time is longer than you'd like, at some point you're just going to have to tough it out and buy a PS5.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it will depend on the reaction of the game as to how I kind of... I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like accept like the like past parts. So if it comes out on PlayStation 4 and everyone starts kicking off that it's a really bad port, then I'm gonna like really harden my stance and be like, no, like
100%, yeah. It has to be good, and by good, I'm not saying this needs to be 4K 60. If they can get a stable 1080p 30 frames per second, which is probably the entry level for playable, and doesn't look like absolute trash, you accept what you get with
I think concessions have to be made on both sides. So the developers will do what they can, but people who are looking to play this, I don't think they can be expecting miracles when it comes to what the developers can do.
Yeah.
And that's my only concern, is that those two expectations won't match up.
Yeah, they are playing with fire a bit, because if it comes out and it's good enough, which is all you can really expect from a PS5 game running on the PS4 at this point in time, then fine. Respawn are going to make a lot of money out of it, which is going to fund the next games, which is something I do want to see. I'm not against games companies making money, because the more money they make on this, the more likely they are to take another risk. Like Jedi Fallen Order was a risk from EA. That was a departure from EA at that point in time, and it's paid off. So it funds more risks like that. It keeps developers employed, which you're constantly hearing about developers having like basic... It seems like games companies seem to go through a cycle where they'll ramp up in production, so get a load of people in, then project's over, fire everyone.
Yeah.
It seems to be that's the cadence of the industry, which is not great, I think, for people's job security and lifestyles, and then setting up routes when they're constantly having to move cities and stuff. So there's issues there. So the more money a game like this brings in, the less impactful that stuff can be. Like,
yeah, it's a good point.
It also means some people can't afford new generation consoles, and what do we just leave these people without games to play? That's why I'm not against it. Like,
I mean, again, like it's like when I talk about this, it's very easy to come across as just very like, a bit entitled almost to a degree.
Yeah.
But I do feel like people who haven't upgraded to this point probably like a much more kind of casual gamers as opposed to like enthusiasts who will probably have found a way to like save up, get a finance deal, like to a degree.
There is a lot of that, but there is generally people in our Discord because they're in our Discord, I would by default, if you're in our Discord, you are an gaming enthusiast, just pretty much by definition, who are debating whether to get a new generation console or not. Part of that, I think, is because of our background in cloud gaming.
Yes, true.
But, so yeah, it's like, I love my PS4, actually. I really do, still, even to this day. But I do think, I'm actually someone who would advocate, actually, for we need to just keep these consoles running. The longer we can extend the lifespan of the console, the better, really. Because when I was playing my PS4, I didn't feel like I needed a PS5.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as well, I think it's worse in the PC space with how quickly Nvidia and AMD churn out new generations of graphics cards. And it's like, you bring out another series of graphics cards, like it feels like every year. It's like, it's a bit
stupid.
It's too quick, and then there's just, you never know what's coming. But I think with console gaming, something like the PS5 having a very long lifespan, I think makes sense. Like, do we need to be talking about the PS6 anytime realistically in the next 5 years? No.
No, I think especially on PlayStation as well, because it takes time for developers to really kind of unlock the hardware to an extent.
Yeah. Xbox might be in a different thing, but we'll talk a bit about that tomorrow regarding Baldur's Gate having a few issues with the Series S. Mm-hmm. But PlayStation doesn't have that issue. So I don't know, I personally would prefer them to just focus on the PS5 version, and once they've nailed that, then consider the PS4 version. And this is not just EA, this is just any developer in general.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Destroy All Humans 2 is a different thing, because I'm not looking at that as a premium AAA game. That is the game that I think you could quite happily develop for both consoles side by side and not really compromise the vision.
I feel like that game probably straddled the two kind of generations anyway, in terms of performance and fidelity and stuff like that. But like Jedi Survivor's, you know, kind of a couple of steps above that. So yeah, like from my perspective, they have to nail like the actual generation it's built on first before they start kind of looking backwards. I think that's my kind of...
Yeah, I think we're at a point in the generation, because we're about 3 years, we're coming up to 3 years in.
Yeah.
Where the focus, we need to actually move beyond the PS4. The early day supply issues have been seemingly mainly resolved. So PS5s are out there. In fact, we've got more news regarding prices of PS5s coming up, but we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, focus on PS5 versions, but I'm not against PS4 versions coming later down the line. You know what is coming later down the line, Rob? Helldivers 2. We have Helldivers 2. I'm a bit sad that Chris isn't here for this one, because he's a big fan of Helldivers, but we have a release date set for October. It's shaping out to be busy October, Rob. We've got Spider-Man, Alan Wake, and Starfield. So, how do you think this is going to impact Helldivers 2?
Yeah, well, what else? There's more stuff, isn't there? Isn't there? What else? There's definitely Metal Gear Solid.
Metal Gear Master Collection and Alone in the Dark. Probably potentially a Call of Duty coming out around about that sort of time.
What else is even a big one as well?
Ubisoft will probably chuck something out. Oh, Assassin's Creed Mirage.
Assassin's
Lords
Creed,
of the Fallen.
That's it. I know. Like Christmas is kind of on the horizon then, but Jesus Christ, that's a hard time for Helldivers to kind of to come out. Like, I know it's beloved, and you know it'll do fine, but I don't know. It's very, very busy. Like, for me, it's going to be a kind of purchase for October, but I can see it being drowned out by some bigger franchises for maybe not as involved gamers. So,
I mean, it's a Sony first-party exclusive. So, I don't know. I wonder, it's like, could PS Plus be the saving grace for something like this? Because it's going to be overshadowed by other stuff. But if it comes day and date to PS Plus, does the Xbox Game Pass thing, suddenly you're getting a lot of people going, "Oh, I'll give that a go because it's I already have it, so why not?" And we should remember as well, they've kind of redesigned what Helldivers is. Because before it was kind of a top-down twin-stick shooter. But now they've retooled it to be more of like a third person over-the-shoulder kind of shooter. Something like similar to, what was it called? Outriders.
Yeah. I guess, like, for me, I'm thinking about kind of the Christmas buyers and like the mums and dads who are gonna potentially look at a digital shelf or a physical shelf if you want. See Assassin's Creed.
It's going to be low down on that shelf.
Yeah, they're going to see Assassin's Creed. They're going to see Metal Gear Solid,
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Like they're going to be like,
Alan
okay,
Wake,
I know these things.
Alan Wake might be a question mark one, depending where you go. If you go to a toy shop, Alan Wake might not be there with being an 18. Yeah. But if you go to like something like a GameStop, you're probably going to see Spider-Man 2, Assassin's Creed, Alan Wake, Metal Gear Solid, potentially Call of Duty up there. EA Sports football game, which I can't remember the proper title for, EAFC.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to be done there. And then I think Helldivers, if it's on the shelf, is going to be lower down, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because it looks like a great game.
It looks absolutely fantastic, but I do think it's destined to do well in a January sale.
Yeah.
I think it'll get legs then, because obviously the price will come down, people will be looking to spend Christmas money, and this kind of, I guess, alternative title, if you want to call it that, from the big franchises. I think that's where it's going to do well.
Yeah,
which is probably unfair because it looks like a very, very good game.
Yeah, it kind of looks like the ultimate version of like a Starship Troopers game. I think when we saw the trailer, we thought it was still going to be Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, it's Helldivers. But there's clearly that inspiration because you're fighting giant bugs. a team of Space Marines fighting giant bugs.
See, it's basically like Starship Troopers Extermination without everyone just quoting the movie lines in the in voice chat.
That sounds like it's going to be worse than Starship Troopers, because that sounds amazing.
It's brilliant. It's like you're deploying. Everyone's just like, the only good bug is a dead bug and stuff like that.
One day we're going to have to do like a live stream of Starship Troopers.
Oh yeah.
I think. What I'll do is, if I remember, I'll add it to my Steam watch list, and if it comes down on like a sale or something, like down, how much is it off the top of your head?
It's only about 20 quid.
All right, maybe I might just buy it, and then we could just do a stream of it. And like, I think what I'll probably have to do is watch the first movie the night before.
This is what I did. I downloaded the game and watched the movie, and I was like, this is aged pretty well as far as those like, 90s sci-fi aesthetic goes.
Wait, because it's incredibly corny, but it leans into it.
Yeah, exactly that.
The whole movie, it's one of them. It's a weird movie because at various points in my life, I've watched it and got a very different perspective on it. As a kid, when I first watched it, it's just, this is a fun action flick with boobs.
Yeah, boobs. Yeah, boobs in the shower. Sweet.
Like, oh my god, there's boobs. Oh wait, this great action is fantastic. Loved it. And then as an adult, you're looking into like the symbolism, like the fascism and stuff, and they're like, are the bugs wrong? It's just like...
Have I become radicalized now?
Would you like to know more? It's actually really quite laid.
Oh, yeah.
But it pretends like it's not.
Yeah, that's the genius of it.
Yeah. But enough about Helldivers and Starship Troopers. Let's talk about the PS5, because we have a sale, Rob.
A sale?
And the sale has led to, in the UK, PS5 sales absolutely explode following a price cut. The numbers are up 75%.
So I've been seeing it like pitched to kind of, is it $399 at kind of price point?
Yeah, I believe,
plus like bundles
$399. The disc base can be bought for as little as $399, so the discless will be cheaper.
Yeah. So what did I pay for my PlayStation 5? I think it was
probably close to probably $499 or something.
Yeah, I think 500 and something with God of War or whatever. It's a big chop off, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it's down to some of our like regular readers will know, like I work in like e-commerce and marketing, and a lot of the people I'm working with and the people who I monitor are also doing pretty hard sales across like every like vertical or industry, if you want. So I feel like it's just obviously, they don't have supply issues anymore, and I think they just wanted to shift some units.
I think it's worth being aware of the greater narrative that's going on, because we're talking about UK sales mainly here. Mm-hmm. The UK is currently going through a pretty crippling cost of living crisis, and that just seems to be endless. Prices of fuel, mortgages are getting doubled. It's pretty rough on the old bank balance at the moment.
Mm-hmm. So disposable income to drop on a console is pretty few and far between.
So you mentioned like a lot of your partners doing lots of sales. Well, yeah, I'm guessing their sales numbers are down below what expected because people just don't have disposable income. When your mortgage doubles effectively overnight, that's literally hundreds of pounds a month that you no longer have.
Yeah, and bear in mind as well, the people who are still kind of wanting to make a jump between PS4 and PS5 probably have a bit less disposable income than than typical, and also that they're not as enthusiastic about gaming potentially, or there's a lot of things working against trying to sell a £500 console at the moment. Yeah, quite frankly.
Well, this is why I'm probably going back to our first story about the PS4, PS5 debate. I'm a bit more, empathetic towards people who are still on PS4, who probably want a PS5, but if you're looking, right, you're putting some money aside for a PS5, and then suddenly you get a letter from your mortgage company saying, okay, your term's up, you're going to sign a new mortgage, it's doubled in price, so we're going to take an extra, say, £500, £600, £700 a month, depending size of your house. Your PS5 plans are now just completely out the window.
Yeah, and I think even if you're not kind of directly affected by stuff like that at the moment, you're still kind of, if you have £500 just like knocking about, like you seriously thinking about, is that just safer to hold on to just in case? Like even I'm making decisions like that where it's I have one income household. It's I feel it. And like I'm not as loose with the way I spend money now. Like it's, even though kind of like my bills are kind of secure and like everything in that regard's fine, I'm still holding on to things I wouldn't normally sweat over, I guess.
I mean, I told you and Chris that I couldn't afford to go to New York. Realistically, I shouldn't.
Yeah.
If purely for the financial situation, I should not have went. But I went. I don't regret it in the slightest. But my bank balance isn't looking healthy at the moment.
No.
It's the classic saying of the money's run out before the month.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll be fine. I'm not about to go bankrupt or anything. No one needs to worry about that. It's just going to take a few months to pay off that credit card. It's like every time I look and go, ugh.
You stop looking at your banking app as much, don't you, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but like
I'm just kind of mitigate my spending as much as possible, and then every month when I get paid, pay off as much as I can until it's gone.
Exactly that. So I can see why PlayStation 5 sales would be completely in the toilet, to be honest. Not do anything Sony's doing wrong. It's just
the sales haven't been bad before now, but I think £100 price cut, especially if people are thinking about kids want a PS5 for Christmas, they've been putting it off for a few years. What if the sale ends? It could be a lot of opportunism. Buy it now because Christmas not that far away. Realistically, it's 4 months.
No, true, and also there's probably something to talk about is like the wider kind of discussion around like what's next for the PlayStation 5 platform, like in terms of what's coming out hardware wise.
I know. Chris, he did write in the doc. Is this move to shift original stock of the PS5 ahead of a Slim Pro model? And I would go maybe. A solid maybe. I don't think it's purely that, but I think that is definitely a thought.
Yeah, well, I think what might have happened is again, like a company like Sony will spend a hell of a lot of time kind of planning inventory, because if you hold on to inventory, you have to pay to store it, and that gets more expensive as things like stack up. So someone will have to kind of...
On that point, that's literally why you're better off buying the disc version of the PS5, because if you don't buy games day and date, the depreciation on them is fairly massive because retailers need to shift the stock so they put sales on.
Yeah, exactly.
Digital versions don't depreciate the same way. You make your money back over the cost of the console easily and more.
Exactly that. So what I think might be happening is, obviously they've planned for a degree of sales which, because of the circumstances of the world, haven't been as fast. So they have to move the stock a bit quicker ahead of, like a Slim or a Pro being announced. So I feel like there is something on the horizon. Or there's just a bit of a hardware update in general to the PlayStation 5 base.
Well, there's
maybe.
pretty much... I don't think anything's been formally confirmed, but it's pretty much a terribly kept secret that there is going to be a version that has a detachable disc drive. And we have talked before about how that might look. I personally think what we're going to see is just a refresh of the PS5. Maybe it is going to be a Slim. I don't think we'll see a Pro yet, because I don't think we're at that point.
Yeah,
but I think if you get a Slim, where it's basically the same hardware as your current PS5, but then has a detachable disc drive, then you're dropping it down where there's currently 2 SKUs of effectively the same console, whether you want a disc drive or not. You're dropping that down to a single SKU, which massively can improve your manufacturing costs, which is something we know Sony are trying to work on. Because it means instead of having 2 separate production lines, you now only have one, and you have a smaller one running the disc drive, and you can buy the disc drive as an optional extra.
Yeah. For anybody who's not as who's blessed to not be as involved in stock keeping as myself and Richie, SKU is a stock keeping unit, which is essentially the model. Essentially the model.
I didn't even think that. Yeah.
The PlayStation,
So every different model of a product you have, if you think about it, you then have to have a discrete production line for each of them. The more production lines you have running on different stuff, it just costs more money to run.
Yeah.
And there's documentation that needs to be updated.
Exponentially more expensive as well.
Yeah, there's stuff you don't even think about. Like, there'll be a full different set of documentation for every bit of the process of making a PS5. Everything from getting the components together to putting it into its box.
Yeah. So
you have only one SKU. That means you only have one set of documentation. It's easier to maintain. That means you have less money going into maintaining that sort of stuff. It's all these sort of things you don't think about.
Yeah, it's like someone's full-time job to think about this shit as well, which
I do a lot of that in the company I work for.
I just pass it on to somebody else to be their problem.
But yeah, I do work in the company I work for does a lot of manufacturing, and I'm involved very heavily in the technical documentation. So
yeah. So to sum up, it's a good time to buy a PlayStation 5. Sony have said it's very specifically a limited time promotion. It's not going to be a permanent state. So
so
have a look if you're looking for a PlayStation 5. If
you're looking for one, now seems like and you're in the UK, now seems a good opportunity. Or if you think about maybe get one for the kids or something for Christmas, definitely consider it.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe next year you'll come out with a detachable disc version. But again, if there was rumours of a Pro, which there's a few rumblings, but they don't feel as solid as more like a Slim, I would maybe you want to wait and then maybe go for the Pro, because in some ways when I got my PS4 about 2 years in, and I think it was 18 months after the Pro was launched.
Yeah.
And in some ways it's
should
I have waited? Yeah.
A slim version is what I want, because I can stop hiding my PlayStation 5 behind my TV because of how ugly it is.
Well, it's not on camera today, but mine's up here. It works here behind me on my shelving unit, because that's literally a shelving unit full of consoles and gamery stuff. So it kind of works in context, but it looks terrible in my living room.
But the mad thing is, so that bobblehead you've got there, that looks tiny. I know it's not tiny because I have a similar one. Yeah. It's not particularly small, that bobblehead.
Fallout 4 Voltec bobblehead.
Yeah, but it looks
context,
tiny compared
here's
to
my
the
cup of
PlayStation
Costa.
5.
This is a large cup of coffee from Costa. Not sponsored, unless they want to sponsor us. It's basically the size of a large coffee.
Yeah. PlayStation 5 Slim, please.
But yeah, I think a Slim would be good with the detachable disc drive. I like it as a concept. Mm-hmm. Keep the changeable plate without the horrible popped collar. Look at what D-Brand do. Theirs look nicer.
Yeah, agreed.
And they're not illegal, so I like to say. Also not sponsored by D-Brand, but D-Brand, feel free. Let's move on to Ember Labs. So Ember Labs are hard at work on their next game after the success of Kena Bridge of Spirits. Do you think this is a studio that PlayStation should acquire, Rob?
It seems like a really simple move for them, doesn't it? It's a relatively small studio. The game went down really, really well. You know, there's a strong base there, and people seem pretty excited about the next title. For Sony to kind of beef up their, I guess it's not fair to call it a mid-tier game. It's a kind of smaller game.
It's technically an indie, but if you could bill it as a smaller AAA.
Yeah,
it has AAA quality to it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. So I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think there's a studio of 15, 20 people. I think.
I don't know off the top of my head how big the studio is. I don't have that
I think it's something around that size. It seems like a pretty simple acquisition if they wanted to do that.
It also depends on whether Ember Lab want to do it, but at the moment, Kena is still a PlayStation and Windows exclusive. I'm sure I've read information somewhere about it maybe coming to Xbox or Switch at some point, but I can't find the article. So please correct me if I'm wrong in that, if I'm misremembering in the comments below, if it is coming to other platforms. But I think it could be a nice little studio. It does feel like a very PlayStation game.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the studio's focus has always been on kind of the less, I think that they refer to as an aging gamer who has a bit less time, a bit less kind of energy to dump into a massive title. And that sings to me in terms of a developer's focus on, because it describes me to a T. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to the next one.
I actually think Kena as well, it's fitting into an interesting place in terms of the gaming landscape, and it's the place that was almost exclusively held down by Zelda, but Nintendo moved Zelda to be more of an open world sandboxy style experience, and that more kind of semi-linear, semi-open world adventure, very narratively focused game. That Zelda used to be, from Ocarina of Time to through to Skyward Sword. That's no longer what they're doing with Zelda. But that means there's a big gap in the market for people who love stuff like that, which is why I really did enjoy Kena. I personally wish it was a bit easier, because I did have it was a bit rough in times, and it's not rough in terms of how it played, but just in terms of a bit Soulsborne in terms of difficulty, and and it feels like, if you look at the art style and the kind of vibe it's giving off, it feels like it should be easier. So it just didn't quite mesh for me.
Yeah. I've heard some horror stories from Chris's, what the highest difficulty setting is, but I've heard some very, very bad things about it.
He's got the Platinum Trophy, and it is linked to the highest difficulty, and even normal difficulty is pretty crushing. So I do recommend people give it a go. I believe it was on PlayStation Plus at some point. It might still be. But if not, it's not that expensive a game. It's definitely a good game. And it'd be interesting to see what they do next. To be honest, Akina 2 would just, do that. I think it went down well enough that you could just continue the story.
Yeah, but I feel like the studio seems like the type of people who would hop onto not a new franchise, but a new kind of narrative. Because I think didn't they start with doing VFX for movies, and then moved into game development?
Yeah, I think so. So Ember Lab is, reading from gamesindustry.biz, Ember Lab has been around since 2009, starting out as a company specialising in commercial animation and digital content, but a decade later it would make its mark in video games with the release of Kena Bridge of Spirits. So it started just off as a more generalised animation and digital content.
Yeah. So it seems like the type of people who want to dip the toes into different things. So I'm just really looking forward to what comes next for these guys, because they did a fantastic job, and they seem like they have their head screwed on in terms of...
It's an interesting direction for a company to go, because Kena plays really well. It's very smooth. The art style's pretty. the environments are fantastic. Which now, when you realise actually they started off working on animation and digital content, you can see where them expertise have come in, rather than being, okay, we want to make a game, this is the game we want to make, how do we do it? They've started with the technical expertise and figured out how to make a game. So they've took it from a different direction. And
I think you feel that when you play it, definitely.
Yeah. So they also caught attention with its 2016 short film, Majora's Mask, Terrible Fate, a tribute to The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. So, if you want to know where the Zelda vibes come from, there you go. They are clearly Zelda fans.
Yeah, definitely.
But Majora's Mask, great game as well.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, good work, Ember Labs, and just keep doing what you're doing.
Anyway, let's keep moving on. So we have some Patapon news. So Patapon is a rhythm RPG from all the way back in the PSP days, and Ratatan is the spiritual successor.
How many Ratatatas are you going to put on?
Ratatan is now it's been getting crowdfunded and it's hit its goals after just so reading from Push Square, they have recently updated the story. After just 24 hours, Ratatan is now closing. It's just Ratatan. Is now closing on its console conversion stretch goals. Sorry, it was stretch goals. The developer is seeking 75 million yen, which is equivalent about $523,000, but has already passed over $439,000 at the time of typing. Obviously, there's still a little way to go for the studio. Little way for studio to go, but with 30 days left to raise the money, we wouldn't bet against it at this point. Further stretch goals include the addition of an extra minigame at 80 million yen. That's an expensive minigame. 80 million yen for a minigame. Old school EA right at work there. Which we also expect the developer to hit. All this is very exciting, of course, because it means the developer should have more than enough money to release its vision for the Patapon spiritual successor.
So
good news.
To be honest, yeah, like Patapon is not a game that completely passed me by. It's like a PSP title. I never had a PSP or a Vita, to be fair. From what I understand, it's like a music rhythm based like RPG type of thing.
Yeah. So I've never played it. I've seen a Let's Play or two where basically it's a rhythm game. But by completing in rhythm, you can that's how you through your battle system is based on the rhythm.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm more aware of it. I'm going to be perfectly honest because I'm a kind of funny fan through the memes.
Right. Okay.
Like Greg Miller of Kind of Funny is a huge fan of Patapon, and for a long time it was kind of a bit of theirs, which is probably why Chris has put it in the show notes today.
Right. Okay.
But if you are a Patapon fan, keep an eye out for Ratatan. It should be coming in the too distant future. They're still working on the funding, but it seems like it's a go. And get that very, very expensive mini game. Do you have, what was it, 80 million yen to play a mini game?
I don't know.
If that's 80 million yen total, I'm just being facetious. But
I don't know if I have 80 million yen. I have no idea on the actual value of that.
That's $558,000.
I do not have $558,000 for a mini game.
Approximately. And I'm assuming it's US dollars. I'm just reading from Push Square.
No, it's all in Australian, Richie.
It could be.
It's going to be all in Australian dollars.
If you see the dollar sign, the assumption is it's American dollars. So sorry for Australians and Canadians. That's just how the world sees it. But let's move on, Rob, to Sony ordering a takedown of The Last of Us on the Nintendo eShop. So a few weeks ago, we brought to you news that there was a Last of Us clone getting released in the Nintendo eShop, that it was clearly a terrible bootleg rip-off. And Sony asking for a takedown.
I feel like it's worse than... Remember the God of War rip-off that came to play Xbox stores for all of 10 minutes? If it was worse than that, it's... Yeah. I'm kind of... I'm looking at screens of it now, and it's just so comedically bad.
It looks like if you try to like put The Last of Us 1 in Grand Theft Auto 3.
Yeah.
The kind of grey, dull environments. I'm just watching a clip now, and there's a car kind of turned over on the side, and underneath the car is just a black slab.
Yeah.
There's no texture on it; it's just black.
It's just kind of mad that this actually made it onto the Switch's store somehow.
Yeah.
Like you hear like a lot of bad clones coming out for like other games, but you like for other like platforms because like the Xbox marketplace is pretty loose, isn't it? But you never hear it from Switch until now.
Yeah, I mean, it looks absolutely terrible. And the thing is, there's probably a fun game in there, but if they didn't just go for clear, just let's rip off The Last of Us, you might have got a fun, smaller title out there and just... So just
it feels like that movie studio who always releases like the rip-off titles when like a big blockbuster comes out. So like when like Transmorphers when Transformers came out, and they had like Battle for Los Angeles when Battle LA came out and stuff like that. It feels like the game version of this. Yeah,
but we'll see how that goes. But I don't know. It feels like if I'm Sony, I'm looking at it and going, this has clearly probably come from the Sony's legal team. If I was the head of Sony, I'm looking at it and going, I don't care. Like,
if anything,
I just wouldn't care. It's like, this is like, it's so far removed in quality that if you mistake this for The Last of Us, you're basically a moron.
Yeah, it's like if anything, like it helps keep The Last of Us in the news cycle by just existing.
It's called The Last Hope in case you want to buy a bootleg Last of Us before it gets pulled down from the store.
I think it's gone now though, isn't it?
It might be gone. I'm not sure.
Was just ordered to be taken down?
Yeah, I don't know whether it went through or whether it's still like Sony's putting pressure. To be fair, Nintendo feels like the sort of company if Sony knocks on the door and goes, you've got a bootleg version of one of our games, we'll almost immediately rip it off. Nintendo can be brutal like that. Like look how they approach things like streamers and stuff in the past and any sort of copyright stuff. They're very hardcore about it. And they're not going to, for the sake of one crappy looking game, potentially damage any already fractured relationship with Sony, are they? So they're just going to go... It's nothing to them to just pull the plug on it. So
yeah, especially like the kind of like the Japanese way of doing business as well. I feel like
Well, like the Japanese way. The reason actually we don't really cover, when we talk say about Bandai Namco games, is while we'll talk about them, we never put a trailer up where we usually do. You've probably just been watching like the Last Hope trailer or some footage that I've put on edited in the show. When it comes to Bandai Namco, we never put footage up simply because every single time we do, we get a copyright claim. Every single time. Because in Japan, there's no concept of fair use.
Yeah.
So if you use any of their IP assets or any of their IP, even if it's a trailer or anything, they believe they have the right to just claim that. And the way YouTube works is you could appeal it. YouTube is an American company, so in America, fair use exists. So there's an argument to be made, but there's no way in hell YouTube are going to back you in your corner.
Yeah.
That's just the way it works. There is appeal systems, but 99% of the time when I've tried to appeal something, it's just been rejected. Because the appeal goes through, Bandai Namco and go, no.
Yeah.
And then what? You lawyer up? Like,
I guess the issue with like Sony going to Nintendo and saying like you have to take this game down because it has obvious similarities to The Last of Us, almost as a diss on The Last of Us as well. Where it's like this piece of shit looks vaguely like my product. Like you have to be careful how you word that, don't you?
The character model of Ellie looks like a lower poly version of Ellie.
Mm-hmm.
Joel, not so much. Joel looks like about as generic white guy as you can get.
Yeah.
Just close shaved, close cut haircut, a camo jacket, and a pair of jeans. It's about as like basic white guy as you can get.
Yeah.
Talking about basic white guys, Harry Potter is coming back in Lego form. Is Harry Potter a basic white guy? There's the first question, Rob. Is Harry Potter a basic white guy?
Well, he rides around on a broom and lives in a castle. So yeah, I'd probably say for the UK, he's pretty typical white guy.
Yeah, that's how we all do it. It's like we all have magic. We're all fighting dark wizards.
Yeah,
he's not basic. He's the chosen one, for Christ's sake. He's about as far away from basic white guy as you can get.
that's why
while
we have
still
a cost of
being
living
a white
crisis
guy.
in the UK.
Yeah.
Very international listeners. That's why we have a cost of living crisis in the UK.
Yeah, because
we're
it's
too focused on other stuff.
Do you know how much it costs to heat your castle?
I know,
Fucking
right?
expensive. That's why I have a small terrace house, because so I can like have somewhere I can actually keep the heating on.
Yeah, and like the elves are always on strike as well.
Oh God, yeah. And then you've got to put the broomstick through the garage, and that's why I have a car, because it's unreliable. Oh God.
Yeah.
You know, one repairs. It's anyway. Lego Harry Potter. So we've got a new Lego Harry Potter game coming. When I catch up with the success of both Lego Skywalker Saga and Hogwarts Legacy, is a game set to cash in, Rob?
I mean, it seems too obvious of a thing not to do, doesn't it?
Yeah,
like, Lego already have like the agreement with Harry Potter, well, that estate.
So there has been previous Lego games. There's been Lego Harry Potter years 1 to 4, and then years 5 to 7 on PS3, which then got ported to PS4 as a Lego Harry Potter collection. This new game is set to feature different gameplay to these entries, so it's not just a rehash. It's going to probably follow the same storyline as well. It's the Harry Potter books, isn't it? But
Yeah.
it's going to be more like the Skywalker Saga, where they've kind of took the concept and reworked it.
Yeah, I think it's just it'll be a nice game to come out for Harry Potter fans between Hogwarts Legacy and Hogwarts Legacy 2. It'll kind of sustain.
Quidditch Champions. Does anyone have any hope for that?
We'll see.
Yeah,
I don't know. But I think it's going to be like a nice game to come out. It'll have a good market. People who have got back into the franchise since Hogwarts Legacy came out. It's just going to make money immediately.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I expect this to come out almost as the same kind of way like Skywalker Saga is. Where I know Chris was slightly disappointed in Skywalker Saga because he felt that it was simultaneously an incredibly long game, but also each kind of chapter, each movie was a bit more condensed compared to the original ones. Mm-hmm. So I always got the impression hearing him talk that he actually probably leaned to the originals rather than the Skywalker Saga. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have a similar theme going here. However, it did sell a hell of a lot of copies. So, yeah. Lego games tend to, Harry Potter always tends to sell. I think this is a slam dunk. I really do. Like it's just pretty money, really. Yeah. Never really played a Lego game myself, though. Have you, Rob?
No, like I've dipped my toe in a few of them, but they just don't really appeal to me.
Yeah, I've looked at them, I've dabbled, and it's like it's just not for me.
Yeah.
But if you are a Lego Harry Potter fan, have at it. It's coming soon. And with that, I think that's all we have time for you this week. So if you've liked the video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell icon of choice so you're kept in the loop with all of our great content here, such as Talking to PS. This show, I went to my XPass outro there just by default, such as XPass, which comes out every single Monday on YouTube and podcast services. Talking to PS, which you are currently listening to, is every single Tuesday on YouTube and podcast services. You can also get this as early access for a member, for us being as little as 99p, which usually goes up on either Saturday or Sunday on the YouTube channel, basically depending on when we record and it gets edited. It pretty much record, edit, stick it straight up. So make sure you follow us on social media at Helix Plays Games on pretty much everything: Twitter, Facebook, Threads. I think we even have Snapchat and Instagram, which are not used that often, but give us a follow. The more people follow us, the more likely we are to post content over there. So if you want to see content over there, just let us know. We have a Discord server where you can join the conversation even more and tell me, well, what was it? It was something that I wasn't sure about. Anyway, if I've been talking about my arse on the show, head over to the Discord server and tell me so. There's a bunch of awesome guys over there, constantly talking about gaming, life in general, whatever else is going on. So thank you very much. My name's been Richie.
And I've been Rob.
GG everyone. Goodbye.
Goodbye.